Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Newsmakers. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, April 18th, and we are joined by our all-star panel of top local journalists, Margaux Lovely of the Santa Barbara Independent, Josh Molina, man of many hats and host of the popular Santa Barbara Talks podcast, Nick Welsh, executive editor, and Ryan P. Cruz, staff writer, respectively, of the Santa Barbara Independent. Thank you all for being here. Margaux, let's start with the story that keeps on giving, Sable Oil and the attempt to reopen that pipeline. You guys have a cover story wrapping up the Coastal Commission hearing, but within moments of it coming out, Attorney General Rob Bonta raced to the courthouse to try to get involved in this and get a temporary restraining order and promptly fell flat on his face. Talk about what that's about.
Absolutely. So, on behalf of the Coastal Commission, Attorney General Bonta and his office filed for a temporary restraining order on Sable for continuing to do work in the coastal zone despite another cease and desist order from the Coastal Commission. Temporary restraining orders are supposed to be, really quick and really urgent. So the hearing was the next day. They requested on the 16th, which was Wednesday. So the hearing was Thursday, the 17th. Um, in a tentative ruling, the judge, initially thought he was going to rule in favor of Bonta and the Coastal
He
Commission and
issued
grant
he issued a temporary ruling, a
a
temporary
tentative, yeah,
temporary ruling.
tentative ruling. However, Sable ended up filing some of their defenses to the proposed temporary restraining order late that night and early the next morning, really. Um, and so Judge Anderley hadn't read their defenses yet. So he ended up reading them in person on the stand to himself while we all kind of sat and waited. He ended up switching his ruling in favor of Sable, and he did not grant the temporary restraining order. However, the case will continue to move forward. Sable sued the Coastal Commission in February, so they'll hear about maybe a preliminary injunction in May.
So the state
May
the
14th.
state is still seeking a preliminary injunction to stop
Correct.
the work. But as you point out in your piece, the work could be done by then. It could be a moot issue, correct?
That's correct. They say there's about 6 weeks left, 22 anomalies to fix. If they've been working day, night, weekends all the time, is what the Coastal Commission, said. So if they continue to do that, there's a very real possibility it could be done or incredibly close to done at that point.
And
Yeah,
outside
I
of
mean,
Donald Trump, I can't think of anyone who's just thumbed their nose so completely at a
well, if you
government agency.
well,
Uh,
if you look at the picture, you have the planning, you have the Coastal Commission. Then yesterday, at the same time, you had the Central Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board by voting 5-0 to have Bonta sue Sable for recklessly, dumping stuff into creeks. They're doing this construction work. Some of it gets to the creeks. Then some of these creeks are in very sensitive habitat, and you're supposed to get a permit. And if you read the complaint from the water board, is Sable says, "Oh, we'll help you, or we'll cooperate," and then they continue to do what they've been doing. And the scenario people get is, oh, what's I'm getting jerked around, and they're just wasting my time. So it looks like they're being cooperative and they keep doing what they want. The other little tiny detail, again, is small, but the county of Santa Barbara just issued a $2,000 fine on Sable for operating these very loud generators late into the night along Santa Rosa Road,
ooh, county
lights,
wakes up.
lights and generators. And, you know, what they're doing is a hydrostatic testing on the pipeline, which means they're cramming water into the pipeline at pressures way greater than the oil would ever go to see that the pipeline can handle it. You need a lot of generators to do that. And in the meantime, I talked to a woman who she has a farm with chickens and goats and the whole 9 yards, and she's got 2 kids. And she said, I'm up to like three, they're going at 4 or 5 in the morning. I mean, it's gotten a little bit better recently. They offered to put her up in the Bacara, I think she told me.
The chickens too? They gotta
But
put
she
the
said, you
chickens
know
up?
what? I have chickens. I'm running a farm here. See, the people at Sable couldn't be nicer. The work crews are super sweet, but the noise has been a problem.
Margaux,
And going back to what Margaux was saying, this is Judge Tom Angeli, and he is famous for never, ever, ever deviating an inch from his tentative ruling.
no,
So
I
the
know.
fact that he deviated from a tentative ruling is what is unprecedented.
No, actually, I had occasion to be in court for about 7 years, and Judge Anderley had a number of my motions and counter motions, and that's exactly right. I mean, it was just like this is here's his preliminary. Here's this is what he's gonna do. So
Okay, but
hey,
then
Margaux,
I'm gonna shut up. But one last, I mean, Angeli's points were twofold. One is the county, I mean, Sable was arguing the county has jurisdiction over this, not the coastal commission. And that is a big, thorny, messy issue, which will take a lot of work.
right, and
to
that's
get into.
Margaux. That's what I wanted to go back to you on, which there was a lot of criticism at the Coastal Commission meeting, as you've reported, of the county for this so-called settlement and also for not showing up and for lots of other things. And um, in an astonishing alignment of the stars, Nick and Jana Zimmer both wrote pieces. Hers is in Newsmakers today, really taking the county to task over the whole issue. Any feedback from that end on all the incoming they've taken?
Yeah, I mean, I think the county's put in a super tough position. That was really the first very public display of county slander that we've seen. I think a lot of people have been thinking it for a long time, but you haven't seen a state agency come through and say they're wrong and I don't like the way that they're doing things, and we're going to step in as the proper authority here. The dereliction of duty, it was a huge statement to be made um, on the county, and I think that's very telling.
Yeah, and
But Jerry, just to jump
we got
in.
to wait. I got to ask Margaux one more thing that's really
Okay.
important, which is in your piece, you state that people sitting next to you, two people sitting next to you during public comment nodded off. And is it not the case that it was Nick and Ryan, Margaux?
No, I mean they're lucky. I don't know if they were, I don't think they were in that room. I almost nodded off, but I'm glad they cut off public comment. I think it was, to the
Enough of the
commissioner's
public.
point, getting a little repetitive. But
Gary, I'll tell you, I was in a 2-hour meeting and I got out and I checked on the Coastal Commission and they said they still had 80 more public comments to go. So,
Yeah.
so I,
All right.
they brought in food at one point.
Nick,
It really looked like
last
they
word
had
on
left
Sable.
and gone
Nick.
to the grocery store and came back with like,
You went to the grocery store and came back?
No, the people next to me fell asleep, woke up, grocery store, like they were there for the marathon for
Are
sure.
you sure it wasn't Nick? All right. Nick,
Yeah,
last word on Sable.
This was not a hearing, it was an itinerary. But here's the thing that the postscript here was, we're going to break this here on your show. This is a scoop, worldwide scoop. The county of Santa Barbara is bracing for yet another Sable lawsuit. This time for its failure, there was a 2-2 vote on whether or not Exxon's former permits should be transferred to Sable. And the county was deadlocked on it 2-2.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean, it means nothing happened. And
So what's the suit? What's the scoop?
well, Sable is about to sue the county
Oh.
yet again.
On that vote to say
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
are they saying that the 2-2 vote doesn't mean what the soups are saying.
What they're saying is that the supervisors need to go back to the planning commission vote, which was 3-1 in favor of the transfer, and the county is saying no. This is what they call a de novo vote, which means we get to decide it based on our own merits, and what we decide is what prevails.
All right. For those who haven't read it, I strongly recommend the Indy wrap up on the Coastal Commission, because it covers multiple issues and a lot of stuff we haven't talked about yet, including this. And Ryan and Josh, I want to ask you about one of the things the commission did was deny yet another appeal of the Garden Street, that 250 room Garden Street hotel. Ryan, what happened there?
Yeah, they denied the latest appeal from Keep the Funk, the organization that's really been pushing back against it. And they found there was no substantial issue, specifically with the issues that the appellants brought up, which was, with contaminants in the soil and with the underground parking lot and the impacts that would bring. They didn't talk about the appellants didn't talk about the price range, which was what the Coastal Commission seemed to be more interested in. We had a lot of comments from the commissioners that they were worried about the price range, and maybe they would vote on it if it was about having affordable hotels. But we're just seeing that this project has been 40 years in the making. Bill Wright had his exchange with that couple streets that opened up the funk zone. That this is kind of the city is well, we saw the city is not going to want to go against it, and it's just going to be hard to push back against this when it's zoned for that. A lot of people say it's too big and maybe it needs more housing, but I don't think we're going to get more housing out of it. There is still a civil suit. It closed the door at the Coastal Commission, so Coastal Commission is not taking jurisdiction over it. There's the suit with the County of Santa Barbara, or in the County Superior Court, that they're suing the city's decision that approved it. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. That's going to take a couple months, but there's no injunction against the property going forward. The only thing is that, with a lawsuit against it, maybe financiers won't want to invest in it right now or want to wait till the smoke clears on that.
Yeah, Josh, Ryan was just a youth, but I think you actually covered the 1983 announcement of this hotel. And
I was not born.
Unless I'm okay, even worse. But I mean, is this still a live issue, hotels versus housing, or is it this particular project was sort of the symbol of that, and that's going to die down now?
You didn't ask me the question I wanted you to ask me, so I'm
well,
gonna
tell
pivot
me.
and then come
Here,
back to
just whisper, and I'll ask
your
you.
question. But I went to the Coastal Commission so I can get photos of Council Member Megan Harmon at a different kind of a setting. It was amazing, but I got pushed out by the Coastal Commission staff because all the media is like on one side of the room, and then I went on the other side where all the tech setup is, because that's the way she was looking at the staff, and I got the photos. So that was quite the little encounter.
Did you perhaps who I am?
I almost said that, but you don't want to get caught on video saying that. It looks really bad. But
Josh, you were calling to mind the H word. Are you a hagiographer? Or
the number of people you've accused me of that over the last 25 years, is a list this long. I just believe in photojournalism and pursuing the story.
I think only visually. I think Josh really wanted to be like the Vanity Fair photographer, the one that does all the covers and stuff. Anyway,
no, but I only say all that because covering a Coastal Commission is so, especially an appeal, is so different than covering an appeal at the Board of Supervisors or the City Council. I mean, I'm experienced. I walked in that room like, wow, I feel like this is my first day on the job. This is so awkward and weird in terms of covering it. And of course, they spent like 12 hours on Sable and then an hour on Funk Zone and less.
What's the difference?
On the Miramar. What?
What's the difference? What was the difference you found?
Well, the other two appeals, the Miramar housing and the Funk Zone, are pretty straightforward. I mean,
No, between covering the supervisors or the city council and the coastal commission, what was the?
Oh, well, the difference is the arrangement, the layout, the setup,
Oh,
and
okay.
the fact that the coastal commission staff doesn't know who I am, whereas the city and the county staff, it's a whole different thing, you know. So I took my shot. I said, just give me a minute, and I got my stuff. And I also wanted to get the Cummings, the chair, you know, a lot of interesting new characters at that coastal commission, and it's fun to watch a different kind of a board.
Have you
To get to
published
your question,
your Megan photo yet?
what?
Have you published your Megan photo yet? Because
You obviously don't follow my Instagram, Jerry, because I have. But also, there was a photo in Newshawk. Motown Josh News is my Instagram. So or
there's a
half
very
me, half
handsome
ripping off
photo of
commentary.
Megan by
What?
Ingrid Bostrom.
Hey, I got to compete with Ryan and Nick, and I got to compete with Ingrid. Cut me some slack here. I'm working hard out there. Okay, to answer your question, all right. No, that issue is not going away, right? Like it is a significant issue that continues to come up, whether we build housing or hotels. The developers say that the city makes it so difficult for them to economically benefit on a housing project. They don't have the density that it's easier for them to build hotels. So this is a thing that is coming up with every development. Now, we do see that obviously SB 330 allows developers in some areas of town to build housing with only 5 reviews, less review. It's a little bit of a speedier process. But in places that it's zoned for both hotel and housing, it's much easier for these developers just to do a hotel project than have to deal with all the red tape of trying to get something approved. I mean, they basically say we can't build tall enough to make affordable housing pencil out. And we're not even talking about a lot of affordable housing, but we're talking what 10%. And they say that's, you know, that's too much. So it is an issue. The council has not passed a moratorium on new hotels. There's support now on the council, but it's not something they have done in the past.
Yeah. Hey, I forgot the biggest issue of the week. Margaux, did you happen to see the bear out there at in
I have
IU?
not, although I have seen more pictures, more social media posts about the bear. It seems like it was really, having a blast. It was climbing
That's a big
trees,
bear,
running
though.
He's
around.
becoming a celebrity.
No, it is. I think we should name it and keep it around. Maybe a new mascot.
How about Henry, since Henry Yang is leaving?
I like that.
We could name it.
The ghost of Henry
Hank.
remains.
All right. Hey, fellas on the city council, we also had this. I didn't really understand this. Are we
Thanks.
making the sidewalk wider, or are we increasing the amount of room for restaurants? What's going on exactly there,
The
Ryan?
idea is kind of to do both, extend the sidewalks so there's more room for people to walk and for them to have outdoor dining where, right now people have to kind of navigate around that. And the point is, I think, to make things look more unanimous or like it's supposed to be designed that way. And the problem though is that it's not, checked by HLC, or this is in El Pueblo Viejo district, and it's not really fitting for that aesthetically.
Oh, it looks like this thing came from Home Depot or something.
Yeah, they're portable, steel with, plastic wood like covering, non-slip covering. It's pretty expensive, 500,000, and it's going to be an interesting, experiment. We've been experimenting now, it feels like, for 5 years on
So
State Street.
when's is it just going to happen, or does it have to go through some review?
No, this is it's already been reviewed. Like they talked about the State Street short-term action plan, which includes this. It includes a golf cart shuttle and an MTD shuttle across the outer streets. And those are the three things that are going to go forward right now. And I think there's 35 more little short-term action plans that are going to maybe implemented in the short term while the city figures out its State Street master plan.
And Nick, are you allowed to ride e-bikes on this or not?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just ride right over it.
You just ride right through it. It's just like, what are you doing where I'm supposed to be riding my bike?
Yeah.
Why aren't you looking?
So
They slipped this, by the way. It's a little bit weird because the council already gave direction to the city administrator to do what you need to do from a functional perspective for State Street. So it removed the council from a political decision every month. But they slipped this into the consent calendar, and it was just like really
And the
quick.
sidewalk widening, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
had
you know.
somebody not pulled it off the consent and had a little bit, they didn't really have a deep discussion, but they said a couple comments because somebody had to pull it off and want to speak on it a little bit more. But yeah, hadn't somebody not done it, it would have just kind of been in the fine print of the agenda this week.
Which maybe not the worst thing to have happened. Hey, Josh, though, speaking of Nick's authoritarian push to make everyone have an e-bike, they're messing. It sounds like they're messing with my free parking downtown again. What's that about?
Well, they've come back with a proposal to increase revenues downtown, but this time also cut costs. If you recall last year, they wanted to put in these parking pay-by-plate kiosks everywhere and reduce free time to 15 minutes downtown. It was a ridiculous proposal. It was too much, too fast, and it was just kind of like a government arrogance. We're going to tell you what you can do downtown. So this proposal's a little bit better.
This was pre-Kelly McAdoo, I think we should point out, however.
Yes, this proposal is a little bit better in that they're actually trying to incentivize people to park in some garages by reducing monthly parking permit fees for both people who drive into town as well as local residents. So they're kind of going around the edges because the city's going to lose the commuter lot on Carrillo and Castillo. So there are some good things that they are considering here. Okay. The thing that is the most outrageous about this, and I don't want to say outrageous because it's not that controversial, but for me, like I'm offended sitting in that room in that finance committee because you have Sarah Clark who is demonizing people who move their cars every 75 minutes to avoid paying another $3 in the downtown lots. It isn't as though these are a bunch of wealthy, rich Montecito people, right? These are downtown workers. These are people who work downtown, who, by the way, don't get to ride their e-bikes and park it at a City of Santa Barbara government job. These are people in the private sector who have to go. And why would you say that you can't, we're going to crack down on people who do the parking shuffle when they're just trying to save money? Like that's a good thing. Like you'd be an idiot if you just left your car all day and have to pay whatever the $18 maximum. So what they're proposing through their traffic management system is you only get 75 minutes the whole day free. And if you take your car out of the lot and come back in, it flags you and you've got to pay $3. So you don't get to.
How does it flag you? They're
Yeah.
going to have to invest $12 million.
They haven't really decided how they're going to do it quite yet. They have a couple options of how they're going to address this 75-minute shuffle. But like Josh said, those are workers. I used to work at Paseo Nuevo, and yeah, we had to do that. And we wanted to pay 15 or more a day. And what we're seeing right here is the city kind of struggling to come to terms with what to do with this parking program. A lot of it used to make money enough to fund itself as an enterprise fund, and that's just not happened since COVID. People aren't going to the paid lots, and we're seeing fewer people in the paid lots having to pay more dollars to keep this program afloat. And now they have to fold it into the city's general fund under the city administrator's office to fund
So
it.
it's not going to be an enterprise fund
It's
then?
not going forward. They're going to probably permanently change that, but for this next fiscal year, they're in a deficit, and that's why they're trying to do this cutting to get that deficit from 3 million closer to 1.7, 1.8, and then that will be paid out through the general fund this year. So
It will remain an enterprise fund, but the general fund will subsidize it because they're in this strange situation. The other alternatives that Ryan mentioned were maybe you get 60 minutes in one lot and 15 minutes in another, or maybe 4-hour break. So for 4 hours, you only get 75 minutes, or 6 hours. So it'll like reset after a certain amount of time. So it's not like as bad as last time, but I think, and I'll speak directly to Sarah Clark here, is the tone of her presentation is really offensive because she is saying things like, she said, it is illegal. It is against the municipal code to actually move your car because that's revenue we should be generating. most people don't go about their lives thinking, how can I make sure the city of Santa Barbara gets the most revenue it can today?
Yeah,
Most people are
how's
worried about
Sarah Clark's
themselves.
pension fund? Yeah,
So
exactly.
there's a definite messaging issue there. And yeah, I mean, it would be a huge change, but it's much better than installing the pay by plate stuff that you see in the big cities
Yeah.
over downtown.
Hey, Margaux, amid Josh's tone policing of city of officials, where are you on the whole transportation thing? Do you drive and do the 75-minute shuffle, or are you with Nick and the autocrats and the e-bike police?
Well, luckily it's Santa Barbara Independent. We get parking all day. Um, so I do drive, throw
Oh,
my
you do?
IHOP
That's right, because
parking lot.
nobody goes to IHOP.
Yeah, no, Nick and I have actually hashed this out quite a few times. I am terrified of e-bikes, riding them, being close to them, breathing around them, all of those things. But, I see the benefits of them and I understand.
I want to see
So
Josh on an e-bike.
so it's not just
One month.
you're the furthest thing from a cranky old geezer, which is why Nick tries to demonize the opposition with.
I don't mind e-bikes, Brian, but it's the attitudes of the people when they drive by you and they're like just thinking they're more important than
Feel
You
free
know,
to jump in
okay,
here,
okay,
Nick.
number
Feel free
one,
to
I do
jump
not
in.
drive e-bikes, but I feel the need. You guys are so overstating the problem. And you know what the real problem is the people who walk across the street, they got their headphones on, they've got their cell phone out, they don't look both ways. They are Darwinian throwbacks looking for, somebody meteor to come and hit them on the head.
I thought the road was for everybody, Nick.
Hey, speaking of meters hitting us in the head, Nick, you covered the county budget hearing this week. How concerned are they over there about what's coming vis-a-vis Trump?
They're would you put this delicately? They're defecating in their pants. Where we're really going to feel it is Medi-Cal, Medicaid. 75% of the public health clinics get 75% of their money comes from the federal government, and they're looking at an $880 billion cut at the national level. That's going to trickle down, and there's going to be fewer people who can go to the clinic. There will be fewer people who can get food at the food banks. I mean, in terms of right here, right now, in this year's budget, they think we can squeak through the finish line if nobody asks for more money.
This year's budget, you mean the one for the fiscal year that begins July 1?
Correct.
Okay.
Of course, as always, Bill Brown, who is the sheriff, everybody loves Bill Brown, but he drives everybody crazy. And one of the reasons is everybody told don't ask for any more money. We are in a batten down the hatches, status quo situation. And all the other department heads go along with that. Bill Brown kind of shows up and says, oh, by the way, I know I just got $12 million more a year last week for the new jail cells up in North County, but I'm going to need 2.7 million more in ongoing money and 700,000 in one time. So just please fork it over here. And so that didn't really go over well.
Yeah. All right. But so things will probably be okay for the next 15 months or so, but then
maybe I would say I'm guessing really 8 to 12 if we're lucky.
And then Ryan, this goes to your piece on the vacancies in the city workforce. If they don't get those filled, there may not be money around to fill them. It goes on much longer.
There's a bunch of problems with that. They might not have the money for it, and people aren't as excited to come work in Santa Barbara and live in Santa Barbara. That's really expensive when they can get that same salary. Working in San Luis Obispo, working in Ventura, and Santa Maria, and with the cost of living that's a little bit more palatable. So there's a lot of problems with that, and just retention too. There seems
Well,
to be,
especially with the cops.
yeah, and police, I think there's 20 spots that they still have trying to fill, and that's what Kelly Gordon's been kind of ringing that gong since she got here. They really want to be able to fill those positions, and we're seeing just police officers that apply, take positions in other jurisdictions,
Yeah.
and the new station is hopefully going to help that. She thinks that having a nice facility and will attract more people, but that still remains to be seen. And there's going to be a lot to think about.
Is there federal money attached to that police station?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
All right. And Josh, that big apartment project on the east side got approved, I guess, but lots of neighborhood opposition.
Yeah, it's funny. The opposition, though, are not the tenants. They're all the people who are around it.
So the tenants feel they're confident they're going to get taken care of.
Bob Ludwig says he knows every tenant personally, and he's going to figure out a way to move them. I have not seen the Santa Barbara Tenants Union involved in any of their issues at all. Basically, it's a 90-unit project. There are 8 housing units there now, and this is a big project. It's like 4 stories. It's 90 units. It wraps around, so it goes through on Gutierrez, and then it comes up on Milpas around the Rusty's Pizza there. There's some nursery land that they're going to develop on.
This
And
is not the Ed St. George project.
no, that project's on ice. They don't really have the funding to do that right now. They're going to figure it out down the road, but it is approved, ready to
Hey,
go.
Josh, you had a story about that. It was
Yeah.
really intriguing. What the hell is going on? I mean, Ed's having a temper tantrum.
You didn't watch last week's show, Nick.
Oh,
Ed got ran out of town, Nick, and he's
he was not running.
Not
out
only
of
did you
town.
not show up, you didn't even watch it.
he's divesting some of his holdings, Nick.
He's still in IV. He's still in the county.
Oh yeah, no, he still has Beach City and stuff.
Okay, but what's really going on? I know what he says, but what's really going on, Josh?
He's laying low, Nick.
Huh?
He's laying low. Why do people lay low?
I don't
Well,
know.
all right. Before we go, shout out, best wishes again to Eric Friedman, City Council.
Yeah, absolutely.
Delighted to hear he got out of the hospital and is recovering. And I guess now they're going to allow the rent control vote to go forward.
Not
That-
rent control.
That was
Not rent control, Jerry.
That was the biggest. Oh, okay. That was the biggest calumny of the week. Oh, you're just putting this vote off. He's just pretending to have a heart.
Who says that, Jerry?
Huh?
Who says that?
Who
would say such a thing?
I don't believe anybody would actually say that. And some people went and spoke at city council and they didn't say anything to that effect at all.
Well,
I told their emails into the city on the public record, and I should go pull them, of which I'm way too busy tracking down Ghirardelli Chocolate Shop coming to downtown Santa Barbara.
Now there's some good
Spend
news.
time on that. What?
Fair and
What
good.
we
That is
don't
big
need
news.
is another chain chocolate shop. We have too many chain chocolate shops.
You're gonna find me walking back from Mr. Softy to Ghirardelli.
Mr.
All
Softy,
day.
Cookie Plug, Ghirardelli. Come on, Josh. We know what's
Okay.
going on.
Margaux, where do you come down on Ghirardelli chocolate?
You got the
And I
steak.
know
Yeah.
if I watched last week's show, you would have explained it. But what is the story with the cookie store and having Ed France run him out of town?
Well, now the city is responding. So now the city is saying, oh, we don't want to mention any of her personal stuff, but they're saying that, she wasn't the best tenant in terms of paying on time. Annette Rodriguez says,
They're changing their story.
They're changing their story. Like every time you shine a light on something, then people want to talk and they have more time to.
Really, Roger doesn't have anything to do with it.
I will say this: Annette Rodriguez, the daughter of Joanne Keynes and Doug Keynes, she grew up here. She started Cookie Plug. She works as a nurse in Oxnard. She invested $100,000 on the building, $12,000 on the urban hip hop art on the inside. She had a 6-year lease. When Metropolitan canceled, or when they went bankrupt, the city canceled the lease. It canceled her because she was a sublease. they were working on terms of a new agreement. And then Ed France on a Friday says, sorry, no deal. She's outraged. She's very angry. She can't believe the city would do this. She thinks that she's being pushed out because the Santa Barbara International Film Festival would like a different tenant next door once they remodel. And
But I
Roger
read
Durling
in the
says no.
I read in the Santa Barbara Independent that their correspondent, Roger Durling, has nothing to do with this. All right, we got to get out of here. Margaux, are you ever going to get freed from Sable, or what are you working on?
Well, we'll see. Bonta's going to be an interesting one to watch, so we'll see where all that goes.
All right, the answer is no. She's not freed from it. Josh, who you got on the podcast?
I don't know. It's Easter weekend, and all my mind are Easter egg hunts. So
Oh,
I don't.
yeah.
Probably
So are you going
I'm
to-
either gonna rant myself or take the weekend off.
Are you going to Elings? The egg hunt there?
No, I have a small child, Jerry. I do my egg hunt in the backyard like a normal family does. I don't want to compete with all those other little kids.
Oh, there
Easter
you go.
Bunny comes to my house, Jerry. I'm not gonna go somewhere else.
Ah, I see. Okay. All right. Ryan, what do you got?
Well,
What
we
do you
got a
going?
big hearing on Tuesday at City Council. Like you said, the eviction ordinance is going to be probably hotly debated, and they might get a vote on it. And then I'm working on some, features on what's happening on the impacts of immigration locally. We've seen not as many arrests, but the rhetoric, obviously, with Trump, heightening
Oh,
up
and
what's going
snatching
on with-
people off the street and sending them to
Yeah.
torture
Sending
prisons
them
and
to
other.
elementary schools in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
And
there's
they're
a
doing
there's a lot of
Brooklyn.
fear still. So, just checking on the local impact of that. I'm gonna have something on that soon.
Let's see, and it's almost 4 months. We only got 3 years and 8 months to go until he cancels the election. All right. Nick, thank you so much for getting up from your
Dental chair.
your dental torture, your marathon man to join us today. And thank you all for watching. And we'll see you next time on Newsmakers.
All right.
Thank you.